I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I have a job that I'm fortunate enough to be able to do so. I work on an assembly line building cars, so you could imagine how repetitive that work is. So it gives me the opportunity to expand my knowledge on all things from spirituality, Buddhism, self-development, psychology, and here and there I'll listen to a good romance book. But this one book in particular has completely changed the way I see myself and the world around me. I think that everybody should look into this book, or at least listen to this video and learn about it. I'll basically break down I think it was an 8-hour book, into a couple videos about the main points about what the book discussed. This book is called The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. He also came out with a book not too long ago called Living Untethered, but that's another story for another day. Recently, I re-listened to this audiobook again, but this time I wrote down notes about the concepts he talks about and made it into a little point form summary so it would be easier for people to understand. What I'm going to do is break down the book into what I call different stages. I call them different stages because it's what you need to learn before you go to the next area of the book. The concept that you really need to understand for you then to understand the next stage, if that makes sense. The first stage is, who are you? Immediately when I ask you, who are you? What do you think of? You could put that down in the comments below, and you could kind of understand what we perceive to be our sense of self. When I say, who are you? You probably will define yourself based on what you do, as in your career, your hobbies, if you have a family, if you're married, that you're a mother of this many children, that you're a father of this many children, that you have a brother, you have a sibling, you have parents. What we do oftentimes as a human being is pull the outside world and the thoughts around us to define who we are. And in the book, he says we do this because we are lost. I recently started another book called The New Earth, and I do see a lot of what the concepts in The Untethered Soul is in that book, but more to a detailed level. What we think is who we are is our ego. That's how A New Earth book describes it. So I will use some references to that book because he did define it a lot better than Michael Singer. Not saying he didn't do a great job, he did an amazing job, but the way the other guy, his name's Eckhart Tolle, defined it really makes people understand more. He says, who you perceive yourself as. When you say, I, myself, me, that's your ego. So everything that you think you are, when I asked you in the beginning, your gender, your hobbies, your career, for example, all that is your ego. So when I ask who you are, the person who's replying in your head is your ego. It's not exactly who you are. And then that will tie us back into the book again. What Michael Singer talks about is who we are is not what we define ourselves as. We are actually just the soul inside this human body. And a lot that he talks about is that you're not the voice in your head, you're the one who hears it. So all that chatter in your mind, that is your ego talking. And who we are really is just the awareness that we're aware of the thoughts and the surroundings that we have of this world. We are just the consciousness inside this body, as in when you look in the mirror, you are the consciousness looking through its eyes. You are the one who sees yourself in the mirror. So that concept may be a little new to you because we really do define ourselves on what we do. And if we don't define ourselves by anything, then we are nothing. But if you believe in spirituality and you follow along with the concepts, we basically only are just a soul in this vessel. We've come down to have human experiences and human emotions. Stage 2, your protection mechanism. The reason we are so closely identifying with who we think we are, with the outside surroundings, like I said, your career, your hobby, is because we believe it is our sense of self. The reason why we feel so strongly with those things that we identify with is because we are trying to protect our sense of self. We identify with these things because we have a fear, and everything is always fueled by a fear. We have a fear of being a nobody. If we're not identifying with these things that we call who we are, then we aren't really anybody at all. So we have a fear of being nobody. In A New Earth, Eckhart Tolle talks about how who we think we are, is our ego talking. And our ego is trying to protect ourselves from the outside world. So that's oftentimes why you might be meeting people, or you yourself get very defensive or resentful or jealous. All those that come under that category a lot, because we're defending our sense of self. It's our protection mechanism. If somebody is offending you or is not believing in what you believe in, we are always defending it because that's who we think we are. The ego complains a lot because it wants to be right and it wants others to be wrong, because if they are wrong, then we're okay. In the Untethered Soul, he talks about how back in the days, our protection mechanism used to be about survival, used to be about starvation, shelter, predators, and disease. But now, because most of us are okay with that in the Western society, we're not really dying out here with disease, we're not really starving to death anymore. We are now protecting our own individual psychology now. And he says the need to protect ourselves is where whole personality comes from. Our major struggles end up being with ourselves, our own inner fears and insecurities and destructive behavior patterns, not with outside forces anymore. So next time you get defensive or jealous, think about why you're doing that in the first place. The question why is the best, because when you start questioning why you do the things you do is when enlightenment happens, guys. Enlightenment is when you finally understand why you do the things you do. I mean, that's just a small part of enlightenment. I'm not saying that's the whole thing. That's just a small part. That's beginning. That's the beginning of the journey to enlightenment. I mean, you can start asking yourself why you get defensive. What helps me a lot is I've now trained myself so much actually that I don't really get defensive much. But when I do, I sit down and I think, why do I feel the way I feel? If I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling jealous, if I'm feeling lonely, why do I feel this way? And you need to understand we're just humans. We have these emotions, but it's not who we are. It's just we're the consciousness in this body who's feeling these things, but it's not who we are. We're just the one feeling them. So when you do have these destructive thoughts, these destructive behaviors, there's always something fueling it. And oftentimes it's because we're trying to protect our sense of self. Later on, I'm going to explain a little bit more about the comfort zone and how it's related to protecting your sense of self, about why we get defensive, jealous, and criticize and resent people. Stage 3, the voice inside your head, the inner dialogue and narrator. Life's too short to be stuck in the unchangeable. Like I had mentioned earlier, remembering that you are not the voice in your head, you're the one who hears it, could change everything. You are not your thoughts, you are just aware of your thoughts, that they are there. The reason why we narrate everything we do, like when we go outside and we see a squirrel, oh wow, look, that's a squirrel. Probably it's cold out there. we're narrating the world. And we narrate the world so that we can control it, so it can be the way we want it to be. Two people can look at the same situation, same event, but both see it and narrate it differently because they want it to fit their reality, their worlds, the way we want things to be. Isn't that crazy? That's absolutely wild. We want things to be the way we want it to be. So that's why we talk so much in our head and narrate everything so it can fit our description of the world. So oftentimes you will find people or yourself getting frustrated with the world because it's not the way we want it to be. Who said things can't unfold naturally the way it is? It's interesting because we can see the example, that squirrel running across our lawn, and we've already seen it, but yet our head wants to narrate it and be like, wow, look at that squirrel. Why are we doing this? We're kind of psychotic. But you need to understand that best thing to do is just observe your thoughts and not to identify with them. Eventually, things won't be so heavily narrated in your life. And you'll see that squirrel walk by, and that's it. A squirrel. You won't need to try to fit it into your reality because it's just there. Let life unfold naturally. Watch your mind spiral down a problem, for example, and let go of the part that has so many problems with it. We tend to think that outside forces will fix our problems when it's actually ourselves that can fix it by not giving the problem energy to begin with. When we have a problem, we tend to try to fix it with outside forces. And the best way to solve this is by not fueling into that negative self-talk that we have. Observe your mind. You will see how wild it is. How wild it is. We get lost. Have you ever had a time where a situation happened and you kept thinking about it to the point where hours went by? Or that you're driving, say you're driving to a destination and you're thinking about something and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm already here, but you can't remember the drive. That's because you weren't even in your body. You were just in your head. The best way to get over this is to be in the present moment all the time. What do I mean by being in the present moment? It means to not get stuck in your thoughts. It's helpful to, for example, when you're driving, to feel the wheel on your hands, to look around you and see the environment, see what you're doing. When you're eating a meal, if you're watching TV, you're not going to realize that you're eating the meal. If you're not watching TV and you're just sitting there with the plate in front of you, you will have to feel the food that you're eating, the fork that you're holding, the glass of water that you're touching, and that will keep you in the present moment, and you'll remember things a lot better. I have a friend who says that she dissociates a lot, where she'll be outside her body and she won't remember things. For example, she went on vacation, she looks back at the photos, but she doesn't believe she was really there, because oftentimes we're too much in our head. We're just talking. It's not you. You're not the voice in your head. We're identifying with it. When it's just narrating our life. You need to understand it's just narrating our life because it wants to fit into this world that we created. So what I suggested for her next time she goes on vacation, or just in life in general, for her to remember the places she's been to, is really being in the present moment. And if your voice starts talking, kind of like ignore it in a way and just watch it. Watch it, see what it's talking about. Okay, like, why are we talking about this? And what's really helpful is feeling things, really looking at things. Like if you're on vacation and you're going on a tour, say you're going to go see a beautiful structure, touch the structure, look at everything, taste the air, feel it, feel the wind coming on you, see who you're with, look at everybody, that will then create the memory in your head and the anchor to be actually in the moment. Because like I said with the car example, you don't remember that you drove from A to B because you were just in your head. You don't even realize that you were in your head the whole time. But if you kept trying to come back to the present moment and realized, okay, I am driving, I see the red light, I see this person in front of me, I feel the steering wheel, then you'll come back in the present moment. So I find that very helpful to remember things and to try to stop this self-talk. For example, at my work, I hear a lot of people worried about, in a year from now, we probably are going to get laid off. We don't know if it's 6 months to a year, but it's just because the whole plant factory is doing a retooling because electric cars are coming in now. So we all have gas cars. So now they got to retool the whole plant so that we can be able to make electric cars. A lot of people are worried. And it's just the new year just happened. And that's going to be next year, next January. We don't even really know a date. They're going to talk about it probably later on in September, November, about what their plans are for the next year. People are already so worried, so overthinking about, are they going to pay us for the year off, or are we going to go on unemployment? And every day, it's a constant thought in their head, a cycle. And why? I'm just like, why are you always thinking about it? We're nowhere close to it. We don't know until they actually tell us what's happening. You can prepare for it, sure, but there's only one thing. If we get paid, great. If we don't get paid, and if you can live on unemployment, great. If you can't, you just go get another job for a year. That's it. You think about the problem once thoroughly. I'm not saying to never think about the problem. Think about the problem. Think about the situation. Think about it right through until you come with the solution that makes you happy. If there is no solution, then it is what it is. And stop overthinking it. If you can't change it, then you can't change it. Let life unfold the way it is. You see what I'm saying? You keep trying to make it fit your world. You keep trying to make it your way. It needs to be your way. Your ego makes everything need to be your way. But why don't you just let life unfold the way it is? We are just the consciousness being in this body. Stage 4, the Buddhist word called Samscaras. Samscaras are events that happened to us in the past that we haven't fully processed through or let go or worked through. And when we haven't fully worked through these past events, they still trigger us today as if it's happening again. It is stored energy that feels like a threat from the past. If you follow spirituality and self-development, you definitely came across the word of shadow side of us, or shadow work. So it is related to the samskaras in a way where it is things from the past that we haven't fully let go, and it's still anchored in us in a way that's keeping us stuck in a comfort zone. Our comfort zone is basically an invisible border or barrier that we created around ourselves and our sense of self. It goes with being our protection mechanism because we don't want to get hurt. Our body really does want to keep us safe, and sometimes it will see things as a threat when it really isn't. Like if you need to go present something for school, something you gotta do, but you are really worried, something might have happened to you in the past where you presented last time, you stumbled over your words, and you never truly worked through that. You never truly forgave yourself for it, for example, or try to work on it so that maybe in the future you can be better. But now it's just kind of a scar from your past. So every time you are put in a position where you need to talk to somebody, presentate or talk out loud or in a social event, you then get triggered back to the past of when you stumbled over your words, which is totally fine. A lot of people don't really look at it because most people are afraid of public speaking. So when you go up there, if you stumble across your words, people aren't really making fun of you. They totally understand where you're coming from. The ones who may actually be making fun of you, it's just projection. And projection, if you haven't heard about it in the psychology world, projection is people unconsciously don't like aspects of themselves So when they see it into other people, they make fun of it. So those people who are making fun of you stumbling over your words in public speaking, for example, are just making fun of you because in reality, they have the same problem, but they won't admit it. Watch, if they went up there on stage, they would probably do the same thing. It's projection. You unconsciously are seeing the things you dislike in yourself on other people, so you make fun of it to try to comfort yourself about it. So back to being in your comfort zone. It tries to keep you safe so that you don't repeat the same thing that happened to you in the past. What really helps me is looking at things that happened to you in the past, events or situations, as in you were doing the best you can at the consciousness level that you were at the time. I do look back at my past and I think if I knew what I knew now, things would be different. But I can't hate it. I can't hate my past. I can't hate that part of myself. I did what I did then with the consciousness level that I was at. So learning about stage 4 helps us go into the next concept of stage 5, which is fighting to stay in control. My favorite quote is, change your reactions to reality instead of fighting against reality. We tend to define how things need to be in order to feel okay. You believe life is a struggle because things aren't going your way. And that's a shit way to think and a shittier way to live, because then you think that the world is always out to get you if things aren't going your way. When, just like the other stages, you just need to let life unfold the way it is. When something triggers you, immediately let it go and let it pass through. Remember that you're the one who's noticing how it makes you feel. You're not the one who's feeling it. You are just the consciousness being in your body, and I can't stress that enough. You are just the one who's seeing things unfold in front of you in this body. You're not the one feeling it. You are just the one who's seeing it. Stage 6 is to let go of the struggle to stay the same. You spend your whole life avoiding pain instead of confronting it. You mold your life around the pain. A good concept he mentioned in his book is that you have a thorn in your arm. And the thorn in your arm resembles a pain that happened. A samskara, for example, that happened. And instead of confronting it, pulling it out, healing it, you mold around it. You'll start wearing sleeveless tops to avoid touching it instead of confronting it. We struggle to stay the same because we're defending our sense of self, going back to the beginning of stage 1 of who you think you are. Our comfort zone, the barrier we have around ourselves, is to keep our fears out. So we somewhat live within the boundaries of our fear. We spend our whole life trying to make everything fit the model of what we want our life and the world to be like. But in reality, we are just keeping our stuff stuck in mental boundaries and limitations. If you want to see why you do certain things, then don't do them. He talks about why, for example, as a woman, we do our makeup and we do our hair, even if we're just going out to the grocery store. Some people. And in order for you to understand why you do that, then don't do it. And then you'll see that it has something to do with wanting to keep up your appearance of who you think you are. You'll learn why we tend to do things, and it always comes back to trying to stay in our comfort zone because it feels safe. The best thing we can do is let go of the tendency to cling. Let go of trying to fit everything in your own world. Just let things unfold the way it is. If you made it this far in the video, then you've learned a lot more than what the average person knows. So you should really pat yourself on the back, because a lot of this stuff is hard to take in and it has a lot to do with wanting to stay in our comfort zone. So really be proud of yourself, and do check out that book because it will go way more into depth than what I am just saying. You've hit the last stage now. Stage 7 is, do you want to be happy? Of course, we all want to be happy, so choose to be happy. We make our own emotions. We choose our own emotions. We choose the way we want to react to things. So choose to be happy. Outside events shouldn't determine your happiness. They are just events. Don't let it bother you, and let it go and let it pass through. If you want to be happy, decide to be happy. Decide to be free. You need to make the intention. You need to become conscious enough that you decided to be happy and free. Commit to the inner self-work, to learning more about this in order for it to be real. You need to do this as if your life depended on it, because it is. It really is. If you want to be happy, if you want to be free, commit to the inner work as if your life depended on it. Remember that everything will be okay as soon as you believe that everything is okay. Everything will be okay as soon as you're okay with everything. Remember to stay conscious of being conscious all the time. Remember that you are the awareness, that you're aware of life unfolding before your eyes. Just let life pass through you and not get too involved into it. You may think that life is confusing when in fact you are the one who's confused. No matter what, just enjoy life that comes to you. The best way to live life the fullest is to not be afraid of death. We are afraid of death because when we die, we think there's so much that we didn't do. So why don't you live every day as if death is knocking on your front door? So then it will push you to do the things you want to do. More. Explore. It will keep you out of your comfort zone. Like, for example, I've been wanting to make this video for about a month now. And then I thought about it. If death was knocking on my front door, I would have made this video so long ago. Because you really don't know when your time is going to come. We do want to believe that we're going to live until we're 100, but we've seen many examples of people who don't make it that long. So oftentimes the reason we're so afraid of death is because we haven't done what we wanted to do. And we haven't explored the world or achieved the goals that you want. So if you live every day as if death is around the corner, you'll see how quick you'll do those things. And you'll live your life and you'll become successful, whatever your goal is. When you accept death, you'll realize that you're not going to waste time anymore. So this is the end of the video now. Thanks a lot for sticking around if you did. Like I said, really congratulate yourself because some of these concepts are really hard to understand. But once you read this book, things will really connect the dots for you. And it will definitely change your life. If you read this book from front to back, definitely change your life. If you like this book, go listen to Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. I think it is much older because the audiobook is all like switching to cassette 1 to cassette 2. So I do think that it's an old book. I think Michael Singer got a lot of his ideas and concepts about life from this book. Just if you want to go into even deeper, Eckhart Tolle goes way deeper into this. Will really mind blow you. So keep on learning. It's the best thing that we can do. Remember that you are not the voice in your head. You're the one who hears it. Just remember not to get sucked into those thoughts, into those feelings. Just let them pass through. Don't let them take over yourself. Have a great day.